What's up everyone, welcome back to ARTV, my name is John. It's time for the second installment of my new series, Rapid Reviews. It's in the title right there. I put 60 seconds on the clock and I tear through an album as fast as possible. It doesn't mean it's going to be a negative review, it just means it's going to be a quick one. In this edition of Rapid Reviews, I will be covering 11 new releases, ones that have ranged all the way from August up until now, some of the stuff that I have missed, some of the albums that I've gotten a ton of requests for and I just haven't gotten to yet. Thank you for bearing with me. I've got 11 albums to talk about today, so let's get to it. If you find yourself enjoying this video, then please slap a like on the video and also consider supporting me on Patreon, especially right now during these times on YouTube. We have a copyright crisis going on and YouTube is tinkering with my channel right now. So if you would like to see videos like this continue, then that top link down below is going to be your new best friend. 9 albums into their career, we find Justin and the rest of Blue October battered, hopeful, and transitioning. The scope of what they've done in the past has largely fallen under the term alternative rock, but this new release sees them tinkering with ambient tones and flashes of electronic. It's a weird feeling that hits me when I listen to this record, but not necessarily a bad one. For as cathartic as this record may have been to write, it's also lethargic in many ways in how it's carried out. The title track, I Hope You're Happy, is for sure a jam and a half that will remind you of why you loved the band all those years ago, but some of the more lengthy and deep in thought tracks feel aimless and off the mark. I really wish I had some more positive things to say about this record considering I'm finally reviewing them and all, but I just didn't feel strongly about this album. The praise I do have is directed at the songs like Colors Collide, which definitely gets weird, Opening Cut Daylight, and The Freeing King, which hits home emotionally. I could take it or leave it overall though. I Hope You're Happy gets a light 3. Total transparency, I've never been huge into McCartney's solo work, at least not the stuff that he's done since the 80s, so this album, Egypt Station, was a surprise to me. I was blown away by just how vital Egypt Station feels, coming from a 76-year-old man who has a passion for music still ignited in his bones. I had low expectations heading into it, having only heard Come On To Me, which still blows in the context of the album. So does For You, but we're not going to talk about that abomination because I want to talk about the positives here because there's a lot of them. Impressive guitar swagger feels Caesar rock, Paul gets open and honest on the relatable I Don't Know, and cuts such as Dominoes go down as smart, catchy, and just an overall good time. I'm also fascinated by this 7-minute romp despite repeated warnings, featuring some awesome changes of mood and pace. Even though Egypt Station isn't flawless, it's damn great in its own right. I'm giving this a strong 4. Every once in a while, a band comes around that just feels utterly colorless, lacking any real appeal to satisfy the appetite of music fans that want something more than just basic pop rock fodder. Prepare to spoil your dinner on Against the Current sophomore album Past Lives, an album that constantly teases you with snacks but never really gets the job done and makes the full course meal. Whether Against the Current or tackling dance pop on I Like the Way or attempting 80s homages on the annoyingly preachy Pretty All the Time, I just cannot for the life of me understand what the appeal of this band is. You could certainly play it and hear things that sound decent, are well enough produced, etc., but the simple question is, why should you waste your time on an album like this when there is so much more that's interesting in the world of pop, rock, and alternative that are killing it in fun ways? Past Lives scrapes by with a light 2. Indie punk's JOYCE MANOR grabbed the reins with another buzzing, less than 30-minute LP. This time around, the power pop influence has been taken up a few notches as they boast a more cleanly produced sound. That's not to say that they lose themselves in the process, as highlights like Big Lie have some cutting bass and guitar parts, and Think I'm Still in Love with You being one of their most fun songs to date. I've definitely got a soft spot for Friends We Met Online because 80% of my friends I've met online or else are online, and and 2, it has some bass that definitely reminds me of Green Day. Outside of those, Gone Tomorrow and $1 Million to Kill Me, which is sharp and witty lyrically, there's nothing that really feels outstanding or special. The drums often seem like they're on autopilot, and many of these songs just end abruptly without ever really taking off. This won't go down as one of the most disappointing releases of the year, although I also feel it won't make the cut for the best. It's a 3.5 from me. Hopeless Records has been killing it with their roster in 2018, and the addition of Australian band Stand Atlantic was no exception. Singer and guitarist Bonnie Fraser has a commanding presence and unmistakable voice, and I was 110% hooked after hearing Lavender Bones. That's one of the year's most catchy and danceable pop-punk tunes, absolutely a must-listen. How did the rest of their debut album turn out? Well, maybe the lead single just set my expectations like too damn high, but I just find this to be a solid listen, not a great one. However, I really do enjoy a lot of what this album is doing. It's got tight production, bouncy rhythms and guitars, and Bonnie's soaring and roaring voice. But on the downswing, we've also got plenty of tropes of the pop-punk genre that just don't thrill me. The collab track Clay with Hannah from Creeper was excellent though, and tracks like Skinny Dipping clearly had a lot of thought that went into them. It's a 3.5 for Stand Atlantic's debut, y'all. Bubbly electro-pop concoctions greet the ear on the sophomore full-length Bambi from Hippocampus. With Bambi being the greatest Disney character of all time, and me personally just discovering that hippocampus was an anatomy term, my expectations for this record soared. What's the final verdict on it? It's okay, nothing too special here, although it's not awful. Some of the songs just take these weird, jarring turns, and then others are super bubblegummy and infectious. It's a weird combination. Doubt bounces around in my head after listening to the album. No, not the general feeling that I have every single day of my life, but the song too. I like the smooth little jam Golden, and I've really developed feelings for the Death Cab sounding Why Even Try, so this album definitely wasn't a total wash. Hippocampus could have gone a lot less indie hipster band and pulled off something a little more enjoyable, especially after their really solid debut album Landmark. Whatever, that's my 2 cents on it. I am feeling a light 3 here. These English rockers nearly broke up after a disappointing release, Night People, in early 2017. Everything they were creating just kind of felt cut out of a magazine, so to speak, like they weren't creating and owning the stuff they were making. They almost revisited the sound of their most successful album, Cavalier Youth, but fortunately they made 6 instead. Without a doubt, this is their greatest and most enjoyable album since Sinners for a variety of reasons. You Me at 6 crafted a swift, light on its feet album full of potency this time around. We immediately sense that urgent tone with the explosive opener Fast Forward, an excellent track that you can rock out to. IOU boast a funky influence, Predictable is a hell of a good time with a killer well-written hook, and Straight to My Head is an enjoyable modern romantic rollick. I'm proud of this band for bouncing back and proving their resiliency after a couple of lackluster releases. This new album 6 gets a 4. Pure Noise Records has handed the world another interesting band from the realm of pop-punk and alternative rock. This time it's Bearings, a Canadian group that have a knack for emotion and real thick choruses. I see huge amounts of potential in Bearings, but the sound just isn't distinct enough yet to make this a great record rather than a good one. For what it's worth, I really do enjoy the vast majority of their debut Blue in the Dark. There are some great songs on here as they tinker with some transit-style songwriting and sounds on the expertly crafted title track, and Tide just washes this sweet, calming feeling over you as you listen to those acoustic guitars. Check out those tracks I mentioned and also give a listen to Careless Clarity, the hammering Stuck in a Door Frame, and the urgent aforementioned. I'm excited to see what these dudes create in the future, and I'm handing Blue in the Dark a 3.5. KHALID is falling into a comfort zone, and he really needs to expand his horizons in the near future or risk being typecast as the moody pop R&B guy forever. He's got style, but the finesse is definitely lacking on his new EP, SUNCITY. KHALID's a young guy that has a lot going for him, and I really am rooting for him because he's one of the best voices in the mainstream right now. There's a big emphasis on mood on this 6-song EP, led by the highlight Vertigo that sounds like a blissful blend of 90s R&B and staring the open wilderness of life dead in the eye. It's easy to vibe with overall though, with the muted acoustic chords of Saturday Nights adding plenty of potential pop appeal, and Better being a simply fine pop R&B cut. I guess that's the main problem though. Outside of Vertigo, things feel a bit void of life. I'm giving SUNCITY a 3. Caring enough about Disturbed to actually review them is tough, but I got a lot of you yelling at me in the comments to do it, so here we go. Evolution finds David Draymond stripping away the chin piercings and falling in love with his softer side, which might be fine if it wasn't so goddamn boring. I could exaggerate and tear this thing into a million pieces, call it a steaming pile of shit, but you know what? It's just not worth it. They got their second big break with their cover of The Sound of Silence that went mainstream, and they're riding out that wave of new fans for every penny that they can. Can you really blame them though? They were one of the biggest metal bands of the 2000s, very successful, and to exist at their current age and in this music climate, they had to switch things up at some point. If you're up for a constant switching of lanes between tame hard rock and yawn-worthy acoustic songs, then you're gonna have a field day with this album. Evolution is a 2.5, and I truly don't see myself revisiting. Boot Up took over the charts, and you know what? I'm happy as hell it did. It's one of the greatest breakout hit songs of the year. I was a bit nervous to hear her full-length debut album after learning she was the protege of DJ Mustard, someone I've always felt was incredibly boring and predictable. For the most part, I'd say she navigates away from a lot of the worst tropes she could have fallen into, even if the album feels slightly bloated. Run My Mouth is a satisfying short tune, and Shot Clock uses some clever metaphors to make itself a fun, loose throwback jam. Dangerous is as sultry and potent as this album gets, definitely give that one a listen too. Surprisingly enough, the follow-up single to Boot Up was a sizable step down in quality. Trip feels safe, predictable, even with its pianos and vocal approach. The collab with John Legend felt way too middle of the road as well, with songs like this being the primary reason that I'm feeling torn on Ella's self-titled album. It's getting a strong 3 from me. That's it guys, we made it through 11 records. Thank you so much for watching this second installment of Rapid Reviews. Please hit that like button. These videos do take a long time to make because sitting down and writing out all of your thoughts to go into 60 seconds for 11 different albums or however many albums, it's time consuming, but I do hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you are new and consider supporting the channel on Patreon at the top link in the description. You can also click right over here in the corner of the screen for my Patreon page, or click right here for the first episode of Rapid Reviews, where I talked about Denzel Curry and many more. Other than that, you can see another recent review or video right over here. All of my socials can be found in the description, and I'll see you soon for more right here on ARTV.